Hi, we've going to show you today a little bit on the new still that's come out from Still Spirits, the Alembic pot still. Now, if we can just run through the differentiation between the T500 and the new still, I think it will be worthwhile. The T500 comes with its large column, and the large column is perfect for making neutral spirit. Spirit like vodka, basically. It's perfect for that. It will produce real top quality vodka. The problem we run into is that if we want to make something in the traditional manner, so for example we're going to make something like a whiskey where we're going to do a mash using grain, or we're going to make a vodka using potatoes, or rum using molasses, or something like this, where we want to retain some of the natural flavours which are going to come through from the actual fermentation, and when it's run through the still we're going to keep those flavours, then we have a problem. We can't use the T500 to the same extent. It will strip out too many of the flavours. So this is where the Alembic has come in, because it's going to help us to retain some of those flavours. On the website you'll see that we have got the distillery yeasts, and on there as well we go into quite a bit of detail recipe wise as to how you can produce your own mash using things like grain, using things like malt extract and potatoes and wheat and what have you. So have a look on the website and you'll see that. What have we got in the way of options? As I mentioned, we've got the T500, which comes complete with this boiler and has its column. But today we're not looking at the T500, we're looking at the Alembic. With two options. With the Alembic we have the column, the condensing part of the operation. Now, with two options here. With the condensing part of the operation, we can either fit this directly onto our existing T500 boiler and lid, or we have the option that we can purchase the copper dome lid, and with the Alembic we'll fit it on there. So what we're going to do is we're just going to run through the setup. The problem that we run into is that if we are buying the copper dome lid, we're obviously going to be investing a lot more money. But I'm going to assume that that's the option that we're going to take, because this is then going to produce the best results. With having the copper, with having the copper and the dome, then we're ending up getting far more quality flavours coming through than we would if we're just going to use the T500 lid or boiler lid, which is much flatter. It won't retain the same sort of flavours that we're looking for. So let's run through how we're going to set up the actual machine using this particular dome lid. We have on here an O-ring that sits at the back of this nut. This will then sit on the top of the column, and the nut comes through with the O-ring then sitting nicely onto the inside of the lid, and on she goes. Just tightening that up. Okay. So on here, I'll put it on here, we've obviously got the silicone seal on the inside. But on here, you'll see we have various outlet points. The first thing we have to decide is what we're doing in the way of water flow. Now with the condenser, we've got various types of fittings that come with it. And we've got things like a tap fitting, which is going to go onto like an outside tap, or it would go onto a washing machine fitting. It's a 20mm. We've also got various options here, so there should be something amongst this that will fit the type of tap that you are actually going to use. So once you've decided on your tap fitting, we then have to get the bits and pieces in place to actually set it up. First thing we've got the thermometer. We've got buttons on the front of it, and we've got just a cap that covers the spout, so this needs removing. That slots in the top of the machine. So that will be in position, and obviously it wants to be pointing in an area, it does swivel, but it wants to be pointing in an area where you can see it and keep your eye on it fairly closely. Okay, if all else fails on the tap front, we do actually one of these tap connectors here. This will just actually fit straight into the tubing here and then can push onto your tap. Not the best of fittings, but it will do the job if you're really struggling with everything else that comes with the kit. So the pipes, what have we got in the way of pipes? Right, the thickish pipe, long thickish pipe, is going to connect onto here. This is our water in, and this one here, this little small one, is our water out, so that will go on here, up here. So the thin one at the top, water out. Thicker one, water in. And then on the end we have the thickest pipe of all, but the shortest one, and that slots on there. We've also got a little Jubilee clip here which can then go on and actually hold that tight in position. When the water starts to flow and when it all gets hot, this will actually start to get quite soft, and therefore I strongly recommend that you fit the actual attachment there. We've basically set the machine up now and we're basically ready to go. We've got the clips here which actually hold the lid down, and the 4 of those in position. So on they go. So we're now ready to start running. When we've transferred our wash into the actual machine, we've got a maximum capacity of 25 litres, so we can take 25. Doesn't have to be a full 25, we can work on less than that. It takes approximately an hour for this boiler to heat up. We need to think in terms of our water flow. The water, we don't want to start running at the start. It's going to be an hour. So what we recommend is about 40 minutes, or when this temperature starts to get to about 50, 55, something like that, then let's start running our water. And what we need to do when we run our water is we're looking to collect about 2.5 litres of water per minute. So we'll start the water running through here, and here we're going to collect using a jug. We want to collect about 2.5 litres in the minute. So we need to time it and collect 2.5 litres. When we've collected 2.5 litres in that minute, we know our water flow rate is good. When it then starts to heat up and we get even hotter on this actual temperature here on the temperature gauge, we need to also make sure that we're not getting any steam coming from anywhere. If we find steam coming out of the machine, the chances are we've got it too hot and we need more water running through, even if that is slightly over 2.5 litres. One thing that we must do, especially with this, this new still, is we really must make sure that we use the Distillers conditioning and the ceramic boil enhancers. First time I ran this, I was doing a malt run, and I couldn't understand it. My liquid was coming out of here. It was brown, it was frothy, and it was really coming out at some speed. And it was all down to the fact I'd forgotten to put the Distillers conditioning in. I'm thinking, what have I done wrong? What's going wrong? It's not right. So please, Distillers conditioning, we're looking at 3 capfuls of Distillers conditioning in this particular machine. We also need the ceramic boil enhancers, which will go in the base. Both these 2 things are designed for anti-foaming and to prevent surge boiling. So really important that we actually use these on the new still. When we get the temperature up and we start to rise, and we see it on here at around 75-ish, 78, something like that, we'll start to get dripping from the column. And we really need to decide with our actual wash what we're going to do. Are we doing a run first to actually strip out some of the flavours and quality, and then we're going to redo it when we've got a little bit more of that and more strength? So we're going to do like a double run. This is the popular option when it comes to an Alembic still. We would recommend that you do 2 runs. Obviously, some people only want to do 1 run. That's fine. That's their choice. But to maintain the maximum flavours and to get the maximum out of it, we're looking at a 2-run version. So we're going to run everything through the machine first. We're then going to collect all that, and then we're going to put it back in again. So I'll come on to that in a short while. But first off, we're now running it. We're now starting to collect. The first 50 ml we need to discard. That's the heads. That's the stuff that has all the bits and pieces in it. When it first starts to run, you'll smell the nail varnishy type smell. Obviously, after the sort of 50, 100 mils have come through, then you'll actually start to lose that, that nail varnishy smell. And we can start collecting. What we always recommend as well is that use a couple of jugs throughout the distillation process, or containers that you're going to use. So if you can, like, first off, one thing really important, make sure that this does not go into your liquid. So if you can imagine your jug was here, this would be a disaster, because if the liquid from the alcohol distillation is not able to drip, you'll end up getting back feed and causing all sorts of problems. So it's really essential that this drips into your actual container. So just going back to what we were talking about a short while ago then, whether we're going to do the 2 runs or the 1 run. Whichever it is, we need to get rid of that first 50 ml. So we'll get rid of that first 50 ml and then we'll collect as much as we can. Okay, I did mention that it might be worthwhile having a couple of jugs. I think halfway, quarter way, whatever, it's all a lot of experimentation with this particular machine. There's no set guidelines, and because the wash that you're using has got varying types in it, like you might have different malts, you might have different sugars, all sorts of different things. Everybody is going to have something slightly different. So because of that, you're going to get variations in colour, taste, quantity, all sorts of different things. So if you've got different jugs, you can then halfway, quarter of the way through, you can start dripping into one, dripping into another, dripping into another. And that way as well, you can check your alcohol strengths. Now this is great when it comes to blending at a later stage. Okay, so we've now collected, let's assume we've now collected from our first run. And that's in, we're going to have probably 4, 5, 6 litres, something like that, from a 25 litre wash. Bearing in mind, it's not going to be as strong as the T500. We're looking at a strength more around the 35-40. At the start, it's probably going to be coming through at 50, and then it's going to start dropping down as the time takes place. But we've got our alcohol now, which has already come through the machine. Now, some people will be quite happy with that, and if they're only doing a single run, that will be what they get. But let's assume now we're going to go on to a double run. So we're going to collect that amount from the still, and it would help if we probably got 2 or 3 runs that we're actually going to do, because then we're going to have enough to actually almost fill this particular machine, which means we're going to get more economy out of it. Rather than just boiling up a small amount, we want to boil up the whole lot. So we're going to put all that into the machine and we're going to start another run. So we've now got the boiler almost full with our first run alcohol. And what we're going to do now is we're going to run it again. Same process. Once we start getting up to the 50 degrees C, then we start our water flow. We want our water flow coming through about 2.5 litres per minute. And we're going to start to collect. What will happen is the temperature will go up to about 80. And at that point, we'll start to get dripping. And as we start to get the dripping, we're going to get the smell, the nail varnishy type smell, and we're going to discard the first 50 mils. In there, you've got methanol, you've got esters, you've got things which really are not very pleasant. You get different things coming off the alcohol depending on the temperature. So you get some coming off at a colder temperature and some coming off at a warmer temperature. But we're around 80, we're going to get rid of our first 50 mil. Once we then start, one thing that if you get technical, we talk about heads, we talk about hearts, and we talk about tails. Now the heads is that first bit which is actually come off. Once we've got rid of the heads, then we're going to be into the hearts. and it's the hearts is the amount of alcohol, that's where the quality is coming through. So what we're looking to do is between, the temperature will then start to rise above the 80, going up to about 82. And at that point, that's when the alcohol quality is coming through that we're wanting. That this is called the hearts. And we're going to collect, and we're going to collect, and we're going to collect. And the temperature will keep rising, and it will go up to around 92, 94. Once it's up at that level, we then need to start watching, because we're then going to get into the latter stages, which is called the tails. And the tails part is the part where we're obviously not wanting to collect that, because we're getting the other things which are coming off because we're much higher in temperature. This is why I can only keep telling you how important it is to have different jugs, so that we can actually collect for 20 minutes in that jug, 20 minutes for another jug, 20 minutes for another jug. And at least that way, if we're starting to get off flavours, we're not having to worry about where we're going with this. We can actually use the parts that we want, and if it's that last part which is no good, again, we can throw it away. I think the other thing that's really important about collecting different amounts at different times is that if we do that, we can then blend it next time we're doing a similar type run. So it might be that we're wanting to create other things from our wash. We might wanting to get a bit more of a smoky type taste, so we're going to use smoky malts in the actual brew. It's all sorts of different things that we can do, and therefore by collecting these different amounts, which we can then bottle and label obviously as to what they are, we can then blend our perfect whiskey, our perfect rum, our perfect vodka, whatever it is that we're wanting to do. So please remember, start collecting different amounts. Okay, so we've done that now, and we've finished our process. What's left in the machine, we're going to actually pour out the tap. Be careful obviously, because it's going to be really, really hot. And we're going to sort of like get ready for our next session. So with that, I think it's time that you all had a go and started to actually experiment with this. Remember, there's a lot of experimenting with the Alembic still. You've got a lot of fun that you can get out of it. There's no fixed way of doing it. There's no right way. There's no wrong way. There's no wash that's brilliant. There's no wash that's bad. It's all a big experiment. And this is where the fun really comes in. And remember, always make a note of what you're doing, because if you create that perfect product that you really absolutely adore the taste of, and you can't remember how you've done it, you've got a serious problem, because it could take you years to get to the stage where you actually repeat that process. So always make a note of things that you're doing, and enjoy yourselves.